In sunny and luxurious Beverly Hills, a family projected the perfect image of the American dream. Jose Menendez, a successful Cuban-born businessman, had built an empire with effort and determination. Kitty Menendez, his wife, was the face of emotional stability in the home and a devoted mother to their two sons, Lyle, 21 years old, and Erik, 18 years old. On the outside, the Menendez family had it all: an imposing mansion, luxury cars, vacations to the most exclusive destinations, and a prestigious social life. However, beneath this perfect facade lay a fractured family core, filled with tensions, control, emotional and physical abuse, which slowly eroded the foundations of their apparent happiness. On August 20th, 1989, a peaceful summer night in the exclusive neighborhood of Beverly Hills was suddenly shattered by a series of gunshots that broke the usual calm. That night, Jose and Kitty Menendez were brutally murdered in their own mansion, not by robbers or hired killers, but by their own sons, Lyle and Erik Menendez. At first, the crime seemed incomprehensible, a savage attack without apparent reason, but over time it would be revealed that the brutal murders were the result of years of hidden traumas and family dynamics that had long escaped public view. That day, the Menendez family had decided to spend time together, going shark fishing on their luxurious yacht. The day passed without major incidents, in what seemed like a typical family outing. Upon returning home, exhausted from the sun and the activity, Jose and Kitty retired to the study of their mansion to relax and watch one of their favorite James Bond films, The Spy Who Loved Me. Meanwhile, Lyle and Erik, who harbored years of resentment, pain, and fear, left with a clear mission in mind. The gunshots that soon echoed through the mansion weren't fireworks as some neighbors imagined, but the prelude to a family tragedy that had been cultivated in darkness for years. The subsequent investigation would not only uncover chilling details of the family dynamics, but would also mark the beginning of one of the most media-saturated and controversial trials in U.S. history, where the nation would be divided between horror at what happened and empathy toward two sons who claimed to have been pushed to an unbearable limit. Jose, 45 years old, was the first to die. He was sitting on the couch when he was shot in the back of the head with a 12-gauge Mossberg shotgun, a fatal and instantaneous blow. Kitty, who had been asleep, woke up to the noise. In her attempt to escape, she was shot in the leg, causing her to fall in the hallway. Unfortunately, it wasn't the end for her. The brothers continued shooting her, hitting her chest, arms, and face. Her body was left unrecognizable. The brutality of the attack didn't end there. The brothers shot both corpses in the knees in a failed attempt to make it look like a mafia hit. They fired a total of 15 shots, leaving the scene in a complete mess. Security at the house had always been tight. Jose often went out without activating the alarm system and left the doors unlocked, even after his Mercedes-Benz was stolen from the front entrance of the house just weeks before they were murdered. Kitty, on the other hand, seemed increasingly nervous in the days leading up to the crimes. She used to lock her bedroom door at night and kept a rifle in her closet, a couple of weeks before the brutal crime. She confessed to her psychiatrist that she feared her children might be sociopaths, something that caused her great fear just thinking about it, and that she hated to admit it, but felt contempt for them. Immediately after the crime, the Menendez brothers, cold and calculating, disposed of the weapons on Mulholland Drive and went to the movies to see License to Kill, trying to establish an alibi. Later, around 11:47 p.m., Lyle called the police, pretending to be in despair and screaming that someone had killed their parents. From the beginning, authorities sensed something was off in the Menendez case. The crime scene, with the brutality and ferocity of the gunshots, seemed extremely violent and personal, something not typically consistent with a hired killing, as some initially suggested. Jose and Kitty Menendez weren't just murdered. They were coldly and calculatedly executed, which puzzled investigators from the outset. However, in the early stages of the investigation, there was no conclusive physical evidence directly linking the sons, Lyle and Erik, to the crime. Nevertheless, their behavior after the murder began raising red flags that, for detectives, were impossible to ignore. A few days after their parents' deaths, the Menendez brothers began to exhibit behavior far from the grief and anguish expected of people who had just lost their parents. Instead of showing signs of mourning, brothers began to spend large amounts of money, recklessly and extravagantly. Lyle, the older brother, bought a Porsche, and Erik, a Mercedes-Benz. They also bought limited edition Rolex watches and took luxury international trips, visiting exotic and expensive places. Lyle even bought a restaurant with part of their parents' inheritance. This extravagant and excessive lifestyle so soon after the tragedy started raising serious suspicions among investigators and the media, who felt something strange was going on in this story. As authorities continued to search for evidence linking them to the crime, Erik Menendez, the younger brother, began to show signs of remorse. The emotional and psychological pressure of the secret he was carrying became unbearable. Finally, unable to bear the weight of guilt any longer, Erik confessed the murders to his psychiatrist, Dr. Jerome Oziel. However, what seemed like a step toward the truth quickly became complicated. Despite doctor-patient confidentiality, Dr. Oziel found himself in a difficult situation when Lyle, the older brother, learned of Erik's confession. In a desperate attempt to protect himself, Lyle threatened to kill the psychiatrist if he revealed what had happened to the authorities. Fearing for his life, Dr. Oziel had no choice but to break confidentiality and alert the police to Erik's confession. This revelation became the turning point in the investigation, and Erik's confession was the final nail in the coffin of the Menendez brothers, who up to that point had denied any involvement in the brutal murder of their parents. Finally, in 1993, the trial began that would not only capture the attention of the entire United States, but would divide the country among those who saw the brothers as victims of rampant family abuse. The trial ended with 2 deadlocked juries. Although the brothers were tried together, each had a separate jury and failed to reach a verdict and was deemed void. Gil Garcetti, the Los Angeles district attorney, immediately announced that the Menendez brothers' trial would be retried, but this time the judge, Stanley Weisberg, barred cameras from entering the courtroom, and it would again become a reality show. Finally, behind closed doors on July 2, 1996, Judge Weisberg sentenced Lyle and Erik Menendez to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Both were sentenced as maximum security prisoners, and both brothers were sent to separate prisons on September 10, 1996. Today, Lyle and Erik Menendez, 56 and 53, are still serving their sentences. Nearly 3 decades later, their case will be revisited thanks to the success of the Netflix series Monsters, and, if this evidence is accepted, they could be convicted of manslaughter, which would mean a shorter sentence, for which they would have been released long ago. On October 3, 2024, Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon confirmed that his office is reviewing the Menendez case and highlighted 2 new factors that prosecutors are evaluating ahead of the court hearing, scheduled for November 26. Ultimately, it will be up to a judge to decide whether the convictions should be overturned. If so, the prosecution will determine whether the case will be retried. Thank you for watching this video. If it made you think, don't forget to like and share it. See you in the next case.